Nice to meet you all. Thank you for inviting me here. Today we're going to talk about the architecture assessment. It's a very tricky thing. So today we're going to talk about it. And what I do like in conferences is that I have always picked a topic that you cannot find on the internet, of course, because why I should speak the same here. And for the second thing, I can't open all the secrets because some of them are covered by the NDA, etc. So I did some modifications in the body of this slide, and I made them like a cheat sheet for you, so you can use those slides in the end if you're interested in how to build the architecture assessment framework and how to do it, basically. So let's go. A couple of words about the practices, like why a company needs the maturity evaluation and who does that. Imagine yourself forgetting I don't know, something in your fridge for a month maybe, and then you're coming back and you're scared to open because you don't know what's in there, right? The same thing is being done with any technology process, right? So imagine the start of a project. Many people go there, do something like pretty smart, large architecture diagrams, everything seems to be perfect, very smart, cool, right? And then it's gone. The project starts to go, and where it will go, nobody knows, basically, because many things change, and you can build a perfect plan, but eventually this plan will change, of course, and everything will. So the main thesis is the architecture evaluation, just like any other tracks evaluation, is needed to understand where we are right now and where we will be in 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years. Today I've heard the topic about the carbon emission thing. I didn't get much, but still I know to understand where you will be in 5 years, you need the maturity evaluation. You need the evaluation of the current state. So this is what our practices do. We have lots of practices in architecture, in DevOps, in digital assurance. Oh, by the way, I'm a head of a digital assurance practice in CE region in GlobaLogic, and also I do the architecture stuff, etc. So my job is to develop the business of a company. So I do some clients negotiation, I do some pre-sales, I help customers to understand where they will be if they will do some changes, some improvements. So basically, this is what I do. And each of those practices have own tools, all cases, all approaches to use the experience accumulated in that practice across the company. So for the architecture expertise, we have actually lots of people, and all our architects is a part of the technology office, means that architects are shared across the company. We share our experience, knowledge with many projects, accounts, and do some very, very smart stuff. I won't stop here for long because you'll be bored, I think. So about the architecture maturity evaluation. So we already know that maturity evaluation is needed to understand where we are right now and where we will be. The evaluation framework is something that can clearly show you where you are based on some certain evidences, not based on personal preferences, because personal preferences can be everywhere. For example, what do you prefer, Java or Python? Half of say Java, half say Python. Nobody will say, Java is better, because the other part will laugh at it. Here in maturity evaluation, there are some constraints that should be tracked. I will make an example. For example, yesterday I flew here from Bulgaria, and when I was at the front of the passport control, there was a woman standing on the right side and talking to the officer, and the officer say, "What? You really born in Hawaii?" She said, "Yes." She said, "Really?" She said, "Yes." "What are you doing here in Bulgaria?" She said, "I live here." And the officer would say, like, why do you have to live in Bulgaria when you was born in Hawaii? Like, you know? So there should be a proper reasons for that. There is always a proper reason. So the maturity evaluation framework should take into account that reasons too. And that's why it's so hard to make it right. Because whenever you do, there is always somebody saying, nah, it's not good because I have my own constraints. It doesn't fit. So what are the highlights of the framework? So the framework should be exhaustive. So it should be large enough for everybody to find something useful for that particular case. For the second thing, it should be used as a self-assessment framework. Why? Because when you go somewhere and say, I will evaluate you, what would you say? How would you react? Nah, we have our own stuff here. You shouldn't go to us. Go somewhere else, right? It's resistance because every time somebody is going to you and say, you should do this way, you should do better, you will defend, of course, because nobody likes, to be on this place, to be reviewed. So self-assessment tool helps for people to take own personal comments and notes for themselves without sharing all them externally. So this is the key value of the maturity evaluation framework. Of course, you can do it on your side too, both self-assessment and external assessment, and compare the results, of course, but this is the key. This helps to understand the benefit. So it should be simple to use and measurable. So you should always know your score. What's your maturity? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11. There should be key areas to assess. Not necessarily every company, every project have everything needed, right? There can be just a couple of areas. For example, there are some companies that do not have the DevOps completed. They say, why would we have the developers who doing this? Whatever you say, like, nah, it should be separate role. You wouldn't find on market the developers with the DevOps expertise. They say, we don't need it. So there is not much you can do. So you should split to these areas and evaluate only those that are available. And basically, based on this framework, you can suggest how to improve it in future. So basically, the concept is simple. As this state is this thing you create right now. So you go on some project and say, what we would like to do is to draw everything present right in paper here to have a basic state to start from. So there are some, Q&A sessions, some personal examinations sessions that allows to draw this picture on these areas. I'll show you a little bit later. But as this is the state where you start from. Then you're thinking about the to-be state, what should be in future. So seeing what they have right now, you can imagine where they go in 1 or 2 years. So you draw the future state and say, you could be here in 2 years, for example, or in 5 years, depending on how fast you do the improvements, right? So transformation roadmap is the thing that will help you to be there. So you say, okay, how much resources do you have for the transformation, for the improvement? And based on these resources, you can create a transformation roadmap, saying like, here you will transform from this state to the future one in all of the directions you prefer. And basically, the main question, how to sell it? So you cannot just go somewhere and do the assessment, do the evaluation. You need to sell it and say, you will benefit from it, because otherwise you have the resistance, right? So if the top management will say, yeah, those guys will come to you and make the assessment, it doesn't guarantee there will be no resistance from a team, because it might be, it will be. The team should understand the benefit of it. For example, I think all of you have some issues on your projects, right? Some classic problems that you always see, and you cannot do much with it because it requires like a holistic approach on the top, because it's like, short circuit. So you cannot do much because you're dependent on the other party, and the other party is dependent on you. So you can't do much. But you would like to solve it because it will be easier for you. It will be faster for you, more comfortable. So that's why you should say, okay, here are the clear benefits for you. There are 3 groups of stakeholders that need to understand it. Leadership of the project. They should know that currently the maturity is here, but it could be there. And the maturity is measured on our score, not on you. So it's our opinion, it can be not like 100% true. So that's why the view, how it could be. The future state and the best practices. It's very interesting that IT technologies are evolving very fast. You can be the smartest person in the world, but you cannot know everything. And that's why you need the maturity evaluation, because some people from outside may know the things you don't know yet. So that's why gap analysis against the industry practices is very good, because it helps you to understand what else you can adopt, what else you could use to solve your problems, and prioritize effort to achieve the correct results. Because, for example, if it's not prioritized, if it's not reflected somewhere, if it's not clear, nobody will do it. Because you shouldn't do an improvement because it's an improvement, right? So there should be a clear benefit from every move, because every move on a project is the money and time spent from the budget. So that's why you should be clear on what you do. And the transformation roadmap helps you to do it. You see what can be done month by month, and you can see the results, and it could be measurable. For the second group of stakeholders, that's an engineering. Engineering, that's a regular engineers working on the project. They should know that they can do a self-assessment based on their opinions. What we do, when we go to large teams, we say, you know what, that's a good exercise that you can do. Here's the framework. Each one of you can evaluate your team from your point of view based on this framework. And you know what? The results are very different, completely different. Like, from left to right, completely different. And in the end, you say, here are the results of your team. So your people see the processes and the maturity from different perspectives. See, it's like a very big difference. So there is something in communication, something in understanding of a process, and something in, in the philosophy, I think, because people usually see the difference. So it can give you an ideas. And basically, the main approach is to do the most visible improvements first. It's a classic thing, because if everybody sees that improvements makes difference, makes something interesting, they say, well, yeah, that's work. Well, it works, good. So that's why low-hanging fruits should be first. And for the sales and business units. So business should see one thing, clear improvement directions, because business, it's an entity that thinks strategically, right? In a year, in 2 years, in 5 years. Not like the tactical, like engineering see. Engineering see today, tomorrow, in a month. Business see further. So business should see the clear improvement directions, where we will be in future. For the sales, and actually for the business too, it established the company expertise. It shows how organized and unified your organization is, because you have certain tools to measure the maturity across all the projects. It helps you to see, the progress. Because, for example, there is a project, you probably heard of participating in some projects where there is, a bright star at the head of this project, who is very smart usually, and this person can hold all the knowledge inside and tell everybody what to do, And all the project depending on this person. So if that person leaves, the project goes down very easily, right? Because this person accumulates all the knowledge, improves it to the level this person can understand, but the rest of the team no. And that's why it would result in a very bad consequences. So basically, if you have a structured approach, you can understand on which level the technologies, their processes, the approaches are entire on your organization. So how do it look like? There are two different things. Usually people mix it, the architecture and engineering maturity, because architecture is more about the approaches, the processes, diagrams. By the way, who can do the architecture evaluations? What skills people should have to do it? Do they should know coding? No. Why? You know. Honestly speaking, I didn't wrote any production code for the past 4 years, maybe. It may sound bad, but it is. So there are two things the person should know to create the maturity evaluation: the architecture approaches, the classic solutions of solving classic problems, and the soft skills. Soft skills are needed to get the information you need and to deliver the information you want to be got from you. So the rest of things will be a good plus, but it's not essential. So the architecture and the soft skills. For the engineering maturity, it's the same, but engineering is more larger concept than only architecture, because it includes the DevOps, infrastructure, quality assurance, digital assurance, all this stuff, and that's why it's recommended to conduct the evaluation together, because it sets the right context. So to evaluate the maturity of architecture, you should do it in a context of the engineering, to align with the stuff that are being done right here on this project within these constraints. Okay, it becomes more transparent, because when you show some very smart architecture diagrams, etc., they will the business say, yeah, that looks cool, but I don't trust it because I'm a business stakeholder. I need to trust this somehow. So if you draw the engineering maturity and they say the architecture is here, the business will understand it, because business will see the common words, the things business understands, and it spread the message about the the approaches that could be done first and last. Okay, two small letters. Don't try to read it if you're not sitting on the first line. But this is what I did personally. I modified our framework in a way it could be shared to a public audience. But this actually shows you the way how to do it on your side. For example, you can see the parameters on the left side. Those are areas. So these slides will be shared to you. So you can use it. You don't have to make it pictures if you want. Yeah, those slides will be with you. So that's why I put everything on here, so you can use it if you want. On the left side, there is a technology stack called maintainability, code reusability, policies, concepts, etc., etc. It's all here on the left side. Second column, it's the maturity number. 1 of 0, 1, 2, 3. 4 levels in total on each of the parameters, each of the areas. So you have a clear, parameters that can say yes or no, true or false. On the first line, for example, we can start from a technology stack. There is usually a single correct, right, classic technology stack for any of the projects, right? But it says you have level 0 embedded if your technology stack is not clearly defined and may vary from developer to developer. Right, it's like, it sounds bad when every developer creates own technology stack, because you'll end up with a zoo of technologies, correct? So it shouldn't be. It's level 0. What's the level 1? Level 1 is technology stack is defined, but does not fit for purpose. You know, it can be evaluated from differently, because what does it mean fit for purpose? That's the project should understand what's the purpose of a technology on certain project. The purpose is to do something this. And the question is, does it fit or no? If it's not, then you're on level 1. Technology is outdated and may contain unnecessary customizations. Okay, the next one, level 2, sustainable, which means tech stack is defined and fit for purpose. Actual versions are in use, so it's up to date, but implementation efficiency is questionable. What does it mean? The technology stack may be good, but if you don't use it the right way, it may result you in loss of time and efforts from your side, correct? So that's why level 2. And the last one, ideal, is when tech stack is defined, fit for purpose, according to recent standards, approaches, blah, 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 technology is effectively adopted. So, you know, there is all these levels for every of those areas, and there are 2 more slides like this. There are second one, data architecture, subsystems, third-party integration, infrastructure, security practices, application performance, engineering metrics, and there are some more. CI/CD, engineering reports, engineering tool sets, and environments. So basically, there can be more areas even to that. In our actual framework, there are more, actually. But that's the things I can share. So you have something to start from, or you can use it on your place. And what is interesting that you can fill every level here, but you need one thing. You need visualization, right? Business, leadership, everybody likes some pictures, not just words, you know? So you might have these. On the left side, there is a self-assessment for according to all these areas. So you can see it right here, see? For the self-assessment, team doesn't believe much in data architecture. There's a 0. Security practices is at level 1, you know. Application architecture, also level 1, so you can see gaps right there. And you already have the directions to improve. Like you see the red, that's something that should be improved, maybe. Or maybe not, because you may say, you know what, security practices, we don't need them because the security, we have an external vendor that does it for us. So we don't care about security practice, fine. But what's about the other gaps? You know? And from the other side, from the right side, there is the maturity evaluation from an expert, independent view. Maybe me or somebody else will come and evaluate the maturity based on some clear evidence and say, you know, my opinion is different. See, I believe that engineering reports you have at 1, not in 2, because you don't have here, you don't have here, you do it wrong here. So this gives a lot of things to discuss. And this is where the improvements come from. So when you discuss, when you compare divisions, you know, not just a conversation based on, you know, something, it's clear. So it's here on paper. So we have something to discuss, we have something to learn, we have something to understand. So that's why we can see, okay, I advise you to take a look at the code reusability. Because, for example, I used the static analysis on your project and I noticed 35% of code duplicates. That's like, you know, doesn't sound good. So basically, the external, forget the word, the external assessment is objective. Objective because it's based on some evidences. So if you say like, I don't know, application performance is 1, then you should provide an evidence. Why do you think it's 1? Because this, and this. So basically, there is nothing everybody can negotiate with you. They can say, you know, yeah, you're right, you have a clear evidences. There is nothing to talk about this. So they cannot be very defensive about that. And basically, if you communicate properly, people will understand that, yeah, you know, that's an external view. It couldn't be 100% true because the project can be complex, can be very complex. And you would need, I don't know, a couple of months with a team of 5 engineers to understand what's really going on there. So you said from start, based on the time we have here, 1-2 weeks, we've reached to that picture. It may be wrong, but this is the evidences we have here right now, and we would like to share with you. So that's why it doesn't look like you should defend against that, because yeah, it's only 2 weeks, it's only something, but it can be trusted because it has evidences. So based on that, you can have as a result, like, yeah, we agree, we need to focus on application performance, focus on data architecture, on application architecture at the first priority. On the second priority, I think code reusability will be good, and technology stack maybe. So you already have the priorities. Just remember that those areas, you can define your own. It's very important to define the criteria for each of those levels. But the areas, you can adopt every you want, okay? But what is interesting that, what if we want to go to the very, you know, very deep evaluation? So this is the second part where I store the directions you have to use to develop this framework, to extend it to the level, for example, like we have. Like, I cannot show him, but that's the in-depth assessment of the architecture assessment. So those are the directions that you may want to go in. For example, from the architecture topics, they could be back-end and front-end architecture, including MVC, microservices, data access, and the directions lay in it. So you can basically define, for example, like, I don't know, level 0, do you have the back-end and front-end architecture approaches reflected on the paper or no? Do you have or no? So you can clearly define the levels, just as I did here, but you can do for everything here for yourself. So you can have something like more in depth than we have here. Of course, it will be like, I don't know, maybe 30 areas, but it will look holistic, you know, holistic, because you have lots of directions covered, everything. And you will go to the details like internationalization, localization, position, and all this stuff. Same thing should be, of course, done to the data tier, because that's one of the hot topics usually. Many people do believe that architecture is only architecture. It's only about how the solution is built. But people forget that there is always a data that usually is more important than the application itself. So there are lots of questions about how the data is stored, how it's being transformed, what are the ETL pipelines, what are the regulations and compliances, how it's done, how it's implemented inside the application architecture. So that's a separate topic specifically for data architecture. And the last one, number 3, is of course the DevOps in operations, because there is nothing you can go without operations at all. You can do a perfect architecture, but you need to align with the processes that are on your project. So there are lots of things about the DevOps. Orchestration, artifact component repositories, you know, metrics monitoring, etc., etc. So basically, that's the last thing here. And in the end, I know there is a stand of our company, GlobaLogic, out there, and they have a very interesting price. There is a Lego constructor. You can check it out there. It's very nice, and personally, I would like to have it. It's like very good. You can go and check. So you have to open the QR code here, and there are a list of questions. There are just 5 of them, I think. Yeah, 5 of them. And you have to answer them, and then somebody will win it. So I think that's all I have for today. Dziękuję.